Hello and welcome to KamenRider Blackman. Whew! Remember when I said when I was going to review Kamen Rider 01 next? Yeah, I lied. I mean, I'm still gonna do it, but this is my next video because today, this video is a full show review of Kamen Rider X. And this is also my second to last video of the year. I still don't know what I'm going to do for literally the last video of the year. I just know that I would want to upload it on New Year's Eve. What's it going to be? I still don't know. I'm thinking about that now. But yeah, Kamen Rider X. We are back to the Showa era. Wait, do we leave? Wait, no, that's right. That's all I forgot. The last show I reviewed was Super 1. But after this, we're finally getting into... Wait, shut up. Anywho, right now, Kamen Rider X. And this show... I first watched a couple of episodes of it because I was just curious about it. Then next thing I knew, I was 6 episodes in and decided, all right, let's just watch this show and see how it is. And so, I'm here with my thoughts, and let's dig into Kamen Rider X. As per usual, let's start off with the opening. I quite like it. I like how it mentions little details about the rider, from his arsenal to details from the first episode. And I think the last line is what really gets me into the song. The X-Rider rides again today. The ending is good too, but that opening just really sells me on what I'm about to walk into. Episode 1, XXX Rider is Born. Yes, that is an actual title. It's a thirst trap. Our show opens up with the first monster of the week sending an alert of his activities to this season's villains, God. Yes, God. But not God as in, well, Lord our Christ, Jesus. God is actually an acronym for the Government of Darkness. So, God is a secret organization where opposing countries join hands to pursue world domination through using cyborg technology. And yes, their operatives are cyborgs. And while we're still on it, let's talk about the monster designs. Like, the first set of monsters in this show are based off of Greek and Roman mythology. For example, the first monster of the week is called Neptune, and Neptune is the king of the sea. Back to the story, we soon meet our main writer, Keisuke Jin, come back to Tokyo, and is immediately targeted by God's minions, the warfare agents, and it's not a problem. Not because they're minions, but because he can fight and takes care of them all on his own. The next characters we meet are his girlfriend Ryoko and his father, who he doesn't have the best relationship with at all. And I don't particularly blame him because his dad is a dick. Why, for more, I'll get into later. But right now, he demands his son's assistance and tells him to wear a vest. Do not tell him that it's a bulletproof vest and later shoots him to try it out. You know, a couple of years ago, I said that the stepfather from Kamen Rider Black was a terrible father for letting Gorgum turn his sons into cyborgs without their consent. So, did this guy write the book on negative reinforcement for parenting? God strikes again, and it's Ryoko who attacks Keisuke, and much later, God attacks and kills Keisuke and his father. Both were shot down, but before anyone could fully die, Keisuke's father takes him to his underwater base called the Jin Station and saves his life by converting him into a cyborg. When Keisuke wakes up, his dad is dead, and his last wish is for Keisuke to cast his body underwater. And here, Kamen Rider X is born.
So, with that said, let's talk about his suit. I particularly have no real big opinion on it. It's just me. But what I do have an opinion on is his weapon, the Ride-All. Why? For multiple reasons. One, it's his transformation belt, and once he unsheaths it, it can do anything. It's a fencing sword, it's two different forms of a staff, and it also has this one feature called the Ride-All rope, where it becomes a rope, and he uses it from now and again, which I thought he would have used it like twice, then thrown to the wayside. But no, he uses it quite a bit at times, and interesting. Make use out of things. And there also is his bike, the Cruiser. It has propellers. Moving on. So, episode 2 follows up on Keisuke's girlfriend. And naturally, he wants answers. His dad just died right in front of him, and his girlfriend tried to kill him. If I was him, I would naturally want answers too. Like, what is God? Why did you join them? What is love? Baby, could you not hurt me no more? Anywho, Keisuke follows and finds Ryoko, and it's not Ryoko. Instead, it's someone who will tell us a few episodes later that they're twins, is her twin sister, Kiriko, who is not ready to tell him anything about Ryoko just yet.
Aside from that, episode 2 is a filler episode. Keisuke goes to the Jin station for moral support, and here's what his father's base tells him. Not these exact words, but to suck it up and fight God. And then the base tells him to get out before it explodes, so it wouldn't have to deal with his crap. I wish I could make this up.
Episode 5, we get a returning character for the Showa series, Tobei Tachibana. This character alone has 240 episodes under his belt for being a long-running character. He first started off as a mentor figure in the original Kamen Rider show, and afterwards, up to Stronger, he's always been that mentor figure and for the Kamen Riders. And to further exemplify the continuity between shows, the years from the original Kamen Rider show up to Stronger are called the Tachibana era, named after this character to highlight that all those shows are connected together. So yeah, although this is my first time talking about this character, Tachibana's back, and just so happens to run into God, and Keisuke yeah. Tachibana's back for the show now. I struggled with a sentence. So, episode 8, we finally get answers on Ryoko's involvement with God, as well as its conclusion. But first, the monster of the week is after X, and Kiriko ends up getting shot down tragically. And as Kiriko gets shot protecting a child, Ryoko is there, and Keisuke assumes that Ryoko shot her own sister. And Kiriko dies, telling him to still believe in her. You can tell already that I like Kiriko. And eventually in the episode, and thankfully, wow, I fucked up typing there. Anywho, thankfully it wasn't Ryoko, it was actually the monster of the week who killed Kiriko. And the monster of the week, named Alatas by the way, next shoots Ryoko. And as she's dying, she finally explains herself. Ryoko is an Interpol agent who was investigating and infiltrating God, and made it far because of her involvement with Keisuke's dad. Her involvement with his dad is also pretty clear. God has been after scientists up to now, and his dad was a clear target, and Keisuke's arrival in the first episode meant that God was going to strike soon.
But unfortunately, instead of dying from a dart wound, God also reconstructed her into a cyborg with a self destruct switch if they ever felt she was betraying them. And sadly, she explodes.
Kiriko and Ryoko's story for the past 8 episodes were for the most part pretty good. Heck, it was the most engaging part of those episodes. Kiriko was out on the field helping while X focused on the monster, and the mystery of what's up with Ryoko isn't just because she doesn't want to tell him, but because her knowledge is limited too. The conclusion was also a nice touch because it didn't take too long. There was a mystery to get to, and little by little, we learned something new and up to the climax. And the conclusion of the story just makes you sympathize when you thought you wouldn't.
And at the end of episode 8, we get a cameo of the next villain to join.
God's chief of their secret police, Apollo Geist, who originated from this show and not Decade. So, episode 14, X and Apollo Geist have their final fight, and Apollo Geist dies. I will say though, I like their final fight together because I felt the energy that both opponents were bringing. Like they were both bringing their A game.
And when Apollo Geist fully dies, he tries to pull out some slick shit and take X out with him. It didn't work, although it should have, because Apollo Geist tricks X-Rider with an arm-shaped bomb in his arm and charges himself into him, and then they blow up. Next thing you know, X-Rider is riding from another direction.
It didn't take me out of the moment, but I did question it because am I supposed to look at this and believe that X-Rider is immortal? But the point is, Apollo Geist is dead. Or was for an episode, because he comes back in episode 16. After Keisuke infiltrates God's base, the Palace of Apollon, he takes a mean hit after defeating the Monster of the Week and is not at full strength at the moment. And Apollo Geist is brought back through surgery, now having mechanical features to him. And personally, I don't see why not. Apollo Geist is the one villain in this show so far that we see actually do stuff. Speaking of which, God Supreme Commander, I haven't mentioned him up to now because he is... What the hell is he? He's a voice that throws his sound anywhere and through anything at any time. Like one time, he communicates with someone through a chicken, and then after he was done, the chicken blows up. So maybe that's why the chicken crossed the road. He had to send a message. Oh, yes. And there are also just 2 more characters that are there to, I don't know, fill in space. Chico and Mako. They were part of a communication error between God, and they're in this show now, and they just work at the coffee shop. Well, at Tachibana's coffee shop. So, episode 21, Apollo Geist truly dies this time, with really no other choice. When he was brought back, his new features were meant to last for a month, tops. And as time winds down, he only has 2 days left to live.
What would sustain him living, however, would be X's mouthguard, the Perfector. Why is never fully explained, and seriously, it's a mouthguard. It's the least technological thing on him.
The point is, Apollo Geist dies for the last time.
And somehow he can decide, screw it, and turn himself into a fireball. I had no idea science worked that way.
So, that's the end of Apollo Geist. And now we move on to our not so new main villain because it's God's supreme commander and they now choose to reveal themselves. They are the actual leader of God, King Dark, and wow, King Dark's appearance. He gives Zordon and Gosei a run for their money because that big ass head has a body. And with King Dark's reveal, the look of the monsters now change. Now the monsters of the week are based around, well, they're a mix of animals and historical figures. Most well-known example, Starfish Hitler. Yeah, that's a thing. Starfish Hitler. Everybody knows about Starfish Hitler. Yeah. Starfish Hitler. Episode 23. A new arc begins. King Dark, as shown, is a big stone head and wants to be mobile, so he kidnapped a scientist and threatened to murder his daughter if he doesn't work on an AR device to make him, well, able to move around. He does so, but throughout the episode, he stalls for time and splits the blueprints for the device into 9 pieces. And sadly, at the end of the episode, the professor is murdered for his treachery, and Keisuke and company are now tasked with finding the 8 other pieces and make sure God doesn't get them. Spoiler alert right now, and I know I really shouldn't be saying this, but this is where the show starts to decline for me. King Dark doesn't need the device to move around because before God has the chance of actually making the device, he is seen actually being able to stand up on his own and even move around. So the search arc was pointless. And so, episodes 27 and 28, we get the return of Hiroshi Miyauchi as Shiro Kazami. In other words, Kamen Rider V3. Now, I myself have not seen a lot of V3, but I really like the charisma that Miyauchi brings as V3. Like, any chance he gets when talking to someone, he takes it to say that he's the shit. Now, episode 27 is also a special where the bad guys and Tachibana tell stories of the last 2 seasons and of the previous riders. So Ichigo, Nigo, V3, and Rider Man. Half of the episode turns out to be a god plan, but pays off since we get a veteran back. And in episode 28, Shiro performs a surgery on Keisuke to give him a new enhancement. The enhancement is X jumping into the air to grab his opponent and basically tumble roll around enough until he decides to, well, toss him in the air and kick him to death. Not sure why that would require surgery. Also, after this, he stops saying his usual transformation call and gets a new one. Instead of set up, he now says Dai Henshin, which is kind of sad for me because why would he change that? He didn't really get a power up, he just gets a new move. And not only that, he doesn't use the Ride-All so much after this. Like, you have this, maybe that's just me. No, I'm thinking like if you have a weapon, why don't you just use it when you have it? Especially in certain cases, if you're facing enemies with weapons. Oh. In episodes 33 and 34, V3 comes back along with Kamen Rider Nigo. And in episode 34, God manages to capture Keisuke and makes a deal with Tachibana. All of the blueprints for Keisuke. God gets the blueprints and V3 comes in as a just in case to save Keisuke. Now, a weird thing happens when the AR device is finally made, and in both episode 23 and this is episode 34, they were both written by two different writers, so that probably explains it. In episode 23, we learned what the RS device is meant for, but in episode 34, it's treated like I want to say an earthquake machine, which is that's no, that's not why. Just no, like it's not what the RS device is for. It's an unnecessary device meant for King Dark to move around, but as I said before, he doesn't need it since he already can move around on his own.
Kamen Rider Nigo, whose name by the way is Hayato Ichimonji, comes back and has actually been undercover for the past few episodes as one of the inventors to make the device. He converted it into a bomb to knock out the workers and kept the core piece. The episode ends with the writers riding off, and thus we now reach our season finale.
Episode 35, Farewell X Rider. Now, real quick before we get into the final episode, I would like to share where I found Kamen Rider X online in order to watch it. Now, the site I found it was called tokufanatics.blogspot.com. But I warn you right now, it's only good up to episode 24. Because after that, I'd stick to the subgroups on Facebook. Because timing's off, incorrect sentences afterwards. That's literally how I watched the final episode. And it was hard to pay attention with that happening. And so, while Keisuke is out looking for King Dark's hideout, Tachibana and the girls end up captured.
X-Rider comes to their rescue in a motorcycle fight, takes a spear to the chest, crashes down, and explodes. I was not proud to type that on my laptop.
Keisuke is assumed dead until he comes back to their rescue again. And Tachibana points out the way inside King Dark's base, and Keisuke heads inside. Once inside, he is trapped by King Dark and is trying to kill him with rubble to crush it, to have fall on top of him until he transforms. And as one could imagine, fighting a giant being in a time before teenagers with attitude could pilot giant robots, yeah, X gets knocked around quite a bit.
That is until X-Rider breaks inside and realizes that King Dark is a robot piloted by a Dr. Noroi, who is a former colleague of his father. Yeah, great idea, dropping that dime in the last episode. God still has one last monster deployed, and it's inside with Noroi, until X stabs both of them, causing the King Dark robot to explode. From the outside, Tachibana and the girls witness the explosion and assume that Keisuke is dead.
That is until they return to the coffee shop and discover a letter left by Keisuke confirming that he survived the explosion. And finally, the third Rider series ends with the Rider riding into the distance and into a new adventure. And that was Kamen Rider X. Yeah, this show was a bit... It's a tough case, to say the least. I like how the show started. I don't like how it ended. There wasn't much suspense towards the end. Because for starters, the writers were not paying attention or communicating at all, which is how we got some confusing moments or at least I saw some confusing moments when watching the show. And it's like, like what I said too, I really like the first 8 episodes of the show. Like, I'm not asking for a total drama series, but the first arc with the sisters gave me something to pay attention to, and it gave me people to care about. Like, I felt more in those episodes. And as for the Apollo Geist arc, let's get into the character analysis now so I can talk about the villains. So, God as a whole, honestly, the it's like the monsters of the week, they were the driving motions of these are our villains, because the generals are just so non-existent, to say the least. Apollo Geist was good, but then we get King Dark, and he doesn't do anything the entire time. We see him move. We see him move around and actually be threatening, but I also remember there being an arc for something that he really does not need. And so King Dark, to me, in my mind, I don't find him to be all that impressive. And while we're still complaining about the villains, this is giving me something that I realize that I don't like, that I pray to God has died down by now. And that's villain organizations with literally 2 people. I didn't like it in Toy Spider-Man, and I didn't like it in Super 1, and I definitely don't think it worked here. And I think it didn't work here because they both weren't together a lot. And not only that, just because it was just 2 people, like when your antagonist side just has 2 characters, there's not a lot to really go around. Like what I said, just to make another example from Super 1, I didn't like the Dogma Kingdom because those characters didn't do much, and what really hurt was that it was just the 2 of them, General Miguel and Terra Macro. Jin Dogma, however, I liked the villains there because there was more of them, so there was plenty more to go around and see, and they were just more entertaining. But for God as an organization, it just doesn't do anything for me, and so they're pretty much left a blank slate in my mind. Maybe not Apollo Geist, but yes for King Dark. And so now, Keisuke. Once again, how I feel about Keisuke is exactly how I feel about the show, because Keisuke doesn't really get much to do. Like, how he started in the show is completely different from where he ends. Like, with how he started, there's a lot more drama that helped him grow as a person. But later on, he doesn't really get anything else to help him grow as a character. And in most cases, he comes off as a bit of a Gary Stu, as he's always on top of everything. So seeing him struggle, actually no, we don't really see him struggle. Like, he's just, it's like in a way it's like we do see him fail at times, but it's nothing really detrimental to make him grow as a character. So really, he didn't do anything for me, sadly. So, one last time, my thoughts on the show. Kamen Rider X is not that great, unfortunately. And it's a bit of a step down. Like, that's really all I can say. Like, how the show starts is fantastic, and Apollo Geist is an intriguing villain. My only warning to say would be to watch out for the final arc of the show, because that's where, I don't know, it started to not do anything for me, at least. And so, with that said, next year, in January of 2021, we're going to kick off with Kamen Rider 01. We're finally going to get to that show. And while we're at it right now, I might as well talk about going into the new year. I may still put out videos from time to time. I just figured since I sort of put a pause on 01 at the moment, I might focus all my time on preparing for that review because, good gracious, I know it is going to be long, and there's so much space on my tablet that I can keep without it having any problems. So, I may still upload if I have a video in mind, but I really plan on focusing towards 01 so I can keep on schedule. So, with that said, thank you guys for watching. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, share this video, and tell your friends about KamenRider Blackman. And I will see you all next time. Peace.